All right. Tonight's Daf Yomi is, actually the month's Daf Yomi, is sponsored by the Durbach, Abudi, and Mandel families in honor of the engagement of Shol Harris to Mir Mandel. May they build a Bayis Neman B'Yisrael filled with Torah, Simcha, and Bracha. Amen. And the week's Daf Yomi is done.
Concluded.
Okay.
Concluded. Yep.
We'll on to the next week.
Move on, exactly.
All right. We are at Rabba v'Rav Yosef Damri Tarvaihu, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wide lines. Eighth wide line on Ayin Amud Aleph. Right? 8th wide line. Okay? So Rabba and Rav Yosef, we were talking about what qualifies, what does the Ben Sora Mora have to do in order to qualify to become a Ben Sora Mora? So the Mishnah said that he has to eat a certain quantity of meat and drink a certain quantity of wine. We said it can't be raw, can't be fully cooked, but it's sort of a partially in-between phase. Same thing with the wine, not fully diluted, but a little diluted. Rabba v'Rav Yosef Damar Tavayu, Achal Basar Maliach, if he eats salted meat. So salted meat was the way that they would store meat that they didn't have refrigerators, so it was not fresh. That's basically the not fresh meat. V'shasa yayin magiso, and he drinks wine, which is fresh, brand new, right? If it's freshly pressed wine, it hasn't really gotten to develop wine flavors and things, more like grape juice. Ein nasa ben sora mora, he's not a ben sora mora, because that's not going to be behavior that he's going to try to continue to do, because that's nothing special, that meal. Tanan Hasan, we learned in a mission over there. Erev Tisha B'Av. On Erev Tisha B'Av, we're going to see, is this the same thing, same rules? Lo yochel adam shnei tavshilin. The rule is that for the Suda Mafsekas, a person's not supposed to eat 2 cooked foods. And also, v'lo yochel basar, he shouldn't eat meat at that meal. V'lo yishta yayin, shouldn't drink wine at that meal. Of course, we have the custom not to eat wine or eat meat and drink wine for the entire week before, or possibly even from Rosh Chodesh, depending on whether you're Ashkenaz or Sfard. But they at least didn't do it at the Suda Mafsekas. V'tana, we learned, aval ochel hu basar maliach. However, he can eat salted meat, because that's not considered meat. V'shosa yayin migiso, and he can also drink this fresh wine. So basar maliach ad kama. What makes something salted meat when it's not fresh? Rav Chanina Barkana says, "Kol zman shehu kishlomim." As long as the meat is like a shlomim, meaning shlomim is a korban that can be eaten for 2 days with 1 night in between. So if it's 2-day-old meat, then it's still fresh. After that, it's considered to be preserved meat, and that's not fresh meat, and that you can eat on Erev Tisha B'Av. But yayin migito ad kama, what makes it yayin, this fresh wine? Ad kama kol zman shehu toses. As long as it is fermenting, right? Still in the fermentation phase, so it's not really into tasting well yet. V'atanya, we learned in a brisa, yayin toses ein bo mishum gilui. So we said that wine, which is toses, which is fermenting, doesn't have any prohibitions about being left open. Normally when it comes to liquids like water or wine, so if you leave it open, uncovered overnight, you're not allowed to drink it, because they were scared that they would have snakes that would get in there and leave venom, so therefore it was unsafe. So therefore they would tell you that you couldn't drink it. However, if it was fermenting wine, that snakes were not attracted to, and so therefore it wasn't an issue. V'kama tisisa, so what makes it in this fermentation phase? Shlosha yamim. Here it says 3 days. So, is this the same rule then by the Ben Sora Mora? That we're going to say that this is what makes fresh meat is something that is within 2 days, or we're talking about this fermenting wine. So the answer is hacha mai, haso, sir, hacha mai, haso. What's going on here? So what's the case by the Ben Sora Mora? Is the rules the same essentially as this rule by Tisha B'Av? Hasa mishum simchahu. So there, the rule is that we're trying not to be happy on Tisha B'Av. That's the whole point. Kol zman shehu kishlomim nami islei besimcha. As long as the meat is fresh like a shlamim, so there's still happiness in eating that meat. Hacha mishum imshuchehu. But here, it is the issue is that the guy, this boy has to want to continue doing this negative behavior. So bechol shehu lo mimshach, and so therefore, as long as it's not totally fresh, that's not going to entice him anymore. Meaning, it has to be really enticing. Right? A regular piece of meat is not going to be enticing. So therefore, this has to be something. So therefore, it has to be really fresh. V'yayin, and as far as wine is concerned, ad mem yom, you have to wait 40 days, because that's when it's finally finished its initial fermentation phase, and it becomes something that is more tasty to drink. So the rules by Ben Sora Mora are, I guess, more lenient in the sense that the wine and the meat that it applies to is more strict. Amar Rav Chanan. Rav Chanan says, now let's talk about wine for a little bit. Lo nivra yayin ba'olam el lenachim avelim. The reason why wine was created in the world is for people who are sad because they're mourners. U'lisholem schar l'rishoim, and also to give the wicked something to get a reward with. Right? The wicked people are doing something. They're going to drink. Let them enjoy their wine. Shenamar, pasuk says, Tnu aschar le'oved, give reward to the ones who are being destroyed, v'yayin lemari nefesh, and wine to those that are bitter of the soul. Rabbi Yitzchak is my dichsev. What does it mean when the pasuk says al tira yayin kias adam? Do not seek out wine, look for wine because it makes red. Al tira yayin shemadim pneihem shel rishaim. Right? Don't seek out wine because it makes the faces of the wicked red. I guess that happens when you drink a little bit, your face turns all red, which is be'olam hazeh in this world, literally. Umal bin pneim b'olam haba, but it makes their faces white with embarrassment at their actions in the world to come. Rava Amar Rava says, Al tira yayin ki yisadam. What does the pasuk mean? Al tira yayin shachriso dam. You should not go seek after wine because in the end it will lead to your death. So, avoid it. Rav Kahana Rami Ksiv. Rav Kahana contrasts the following psukim. Tirosh. It says in the pasuk Tirosh v'karina and Tirosh. It says Tirosh v'karina and Tirosh. The word is written always in the Torah without a vav. So it's written Tirosh, and it is written, we read it Tirosh, but it's written Tirosh. So what does that mean? Zacha, if a person is meritorious and can restrain himself and not go drink too much, Naserosh, he can become a head. But lo Zacha, but if you're not and can't control yourself, Naserosh, you will be a pauper. Rava Rami Ksiv, Rava contrasted the following psukim. Ksiv Yismach v'karina. So ksiv yishmach v'karinin yismach. The word as written with a shin or with a sin. So it explains zacha. If a person is meritorious, misamcho, then the wine will make him happy. Lo zacha, if not, misham mehu, it will destroy him with a shin. V'hainu damar Rava chamra v'richni pikrin, and that's what Rava says. That he says that wine and good smells are good for are good for the make somebody wise, right? If you those are refined tastes. Amar Rav Amram, Braid Reb Shimon Bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Chanina. Ma'idich Siv. What does it mean when the pasuk says lemi oy, lemi avoy, lemi medanim, lemi siach? Who is it that is going to say woe? Who's going to say avoy, which is another phrase of woe? Who has fights? Who's going to, who has tribulations with, arguments? And lemi pitzoyim, who has wounds? Chinam, for no reason. Lemi chachlilos enayim, who has red eyes? Lema achrim al yayin, so these are people who stay late with the wine. Leboim lachkor mimasech. Second is meaning that they stay late in order to drink wine, and they are always seeking out to find out where can they find the next good drink, right? So those are the people that are like bar hoppers. Ki also Rav Dimi Amar Amri ben Marava, like when Rav Dimi said, came from Eretz Yisrael. He said in Eretz Yisrael, Haikra man de dorish le mireshi l'seife, mireshi l'seife midrash, or miseife l'reshi midrash. You can read this pasuk forwards and backwards, meaning all these people who suffer all of these things. What are they going to do? They're going to go out and drink. Or you can read it the other way. Those that go out and drink are going to have all this suffering. So it's kind of, as was Homer Simpson said, alcohol is the cause of and the solution for all of life's problems, right? So it kind of works both directions. Simpsons. Okay. Dorash over Glila'ah Shlosha Asar Vovin Nemar B'Yayin. So over, who was sounds like a person who is from Galil, and he said that there are 13 times the vav. Now the vav stands for vay or woe. For 13 times it says Nemru B'Yayin in the pasuk that tells us, that introduces us to wine in the Torah. Lots of vavs, which shows wine is potential pitfall here. Vayechal Noach Isha Adama. Right, that Noach was he was a man of the earth. Vayita kerem, he planted a vineyard. Vayoshes min hayayin, and he drank from the wine. Vayiskar, and he became drunk. Vayisgal betoch alo, and he went into his tent and he passed out there. Vayar Cham, and his son Cham saw him. Avi Knan, the father of Canaan, as Ervas Aviv, the Erva of his father. Vayagil l'shnei achav, and he told his two brothers, Bachutz, outside. Vayikach Shem vayefes esasimla. Shem and Yefes took the garment. Vayasimu al Shechem. Shnehem, and they put it on their shoulders. Vayocha achoronis, and they went in backwards. Vayechasu as ervas avihim, they covered up their father's nakedness. Upneim, with their faces away from him. Then Vayikatz Noach miyeno. Noach woke up. Vayeda as kol shelo beno hakatan. He saw what his youngest son had done to him. Rav Shmuel. So Rav Shmuel have an argument. What did he do? Chad Omar Sarso. One said that they castrated him. Chad Omar Rav O. One said they had relations with him. He had relations with him. Man da Omar Sarso. Mitok shekilkulu beravi'i. Killo beravi'i. So the one that says that he castrated him prevented him from having a fourth child because he had Shem, Cham, and Yafes. So he couldn't have a fourth child. So therefore the curse that Noach gave to Cham was that his fourth son, Canaan, was going to be cursed. So it makes sense. Why did he curse the fourth son? Because that was the thing that he hurt Noach with. Uman Damar Rivo, the one who said relations with him, Gamar, he learns from Vayar, because it says he learns a Gzir Shava from the word Vayar. Ksiv Hach, it says over here, Vayar Cham Avi Knan as Ervas Aviv. And then Ksiv Hasam, it says over there, Vayar Oso Shechem ben Chamor, talking about Dinah when she got captured, that Shechem ben Chamor saw her. So therefore, the same Avera applies. Bishlam Elaman Damar Sarso Misham Hachi Kilo Birvi. Yeah, but we have a good reason why we explained why Noach cursed the fourth son. Because he couldn't have a fourth son after what Cham did to him. Elaman Damar Rav O, according to the one he had relations with. So Maishna Ravi Naltia Behedya. So why did he curse his fourth son? Why didn't he just curse Cham directly? So the answer is Havaha Havai. He did both. That Cham did both of those averos to him, and therefore, even according to the opinion that said that he had relations with him, he also castrated him. Vayechal Noach ish hadama. Now back into this discussion about what happened with Noach. So Noach was this man in the field. Vayita Kerem, he planted the field. Amar of Chisda, Amar of Ukva, Vamri La Amar Ukva, Amar of Zakai. Amar Le Kodesh Baruch Noach. Hashem said to Noach, Noach lo hayilachalamed me Adam Harishon. You should have learned from what happened to Adam Harishon. Shelo garam lo elayayin. His avera happened to him because he also drank wine. Shkeman da'amar oso elon she'achal mimenu Adam Rishon gefen haya. That's like the opinion that says that the tree of Eitz Hadas Tov Hara was a vineyard, was a grapevine, and so he drank wine. The Tanya, as we learned in a brisa, Rabbi Meir says oso elon she'achal Adam Rishon mimenu gefen haya. Rabbi Meir says the tree of knowledge Tov Hara was a grapevine. Okay, so that's one opinion. Because why? Because woe was brought into the world through it, and that is always the source of problems. Too much wine. Rabbi Yehuda says chita haya. No, it was wheat. It was a wheat tree, I guess, of some kind. Sheina tinuk yodel likro abba v'ima ad sheyitom tam dagon. Because children don't start to get smart. They can't start speaking until they eat solid foods. They start to eat wheat, and then they start speaking. Reb Nechem, so there's a tree of knowledge. It makes good sense, right? Interesting, right? Reb Nechem Yomer Rechina says it's a te'ena haya. It was a fig tree. Because that which caused the avera wound up being its salvation, right? That's how it got fixed. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, "Vayitferu alei te'ena," that Hashem made clothing for Adam and Chava out of fig leaves. So why do you make it out of fig leaves? The answer is because the tree that they ate from was figs. Okay, Divrei Lemuel Melech Masa. So this is the word of Lemuel, right? If you want to know where Lemuel's name comes from, it comes from here in Mishlei, and it is the other name, Shlomo HaMelech's other name. So you know that our Lemuel in I don't know if he knows this. It's a good question to be able to ask him. But Lemuel, the name Lemuel is, he's the computer person, the computer IT guy at the school. His name Lemuel, and that is, I'm sure it's a biblical name, and it comes from here. That is Shlomo. He is another name for Shlomo HaMelech. Because
he's not Jewish?
He's not Jewish, no, right? But they also have the same Old Testament, right? So there it is. So Masar Shir Yisarto Imo, this is the rebuke that his mother yelled at him. right? Shlomo Melech got in trouble with his mom. What happened? Number Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Rabbi Yochanan said the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Melamid Shek Kaf Aso Imo Al Ha'amud. That his mother tied him up against the pillar, ready to give him lashes. Right? V'amralo, and she said to him, Ma bri, Umar bitni, what is going on with my son? Umar bar bitni, and what is going on with the son of my womb? Umar bar nidrai, what about the son of my promises? Umar bar, so let's go through what exactly she was rebuking him for. Ma bri, so what happened is, Shlomo HaMelech had got married to the daughter of Paro, and they celebrated that night and had some wine. And Shlomo slept late the next day, where the Beis Hamikdash was going to be built, and the Shechina wasn't coming down to rest. And so Bathsheba comes along and starts to rebuke Shlomo and tell him, "What are you doing? Drinking too much. It's not appropriate for somebody of your stature to be drinking too much and sleeping late when we have a Beis Hamikdash to open up here." So, Mabri, what did she say to him? She said, "My son, Hakol Yodim Shavicha Yuri Shemayim Hava, Achshav Yomru Imu Garmalos." She says, "My son, this is what people are going to say. Everybody knows your father, David, was a great man. So they're going to say, well, where did he learn this terrible behavior from? Must be his mother. So therefore, she says, that's the first thing I'm upset at you for. Umar bar bitni, what about the son of my womb? Kol hanoshim shel beis avicha. Here's what all the ladies that of your father's household are going to say. Kevan shemis abrus shuv einon roos pnei hamelech. What happened is all the other wives, when they became pregnant, so that David HaMelech didn't need to be with them anymore. They're already pregnant. Vani dachakti v'nichnasti, but I pushed my way back in to continue to be with David, Kadesh Eheli ben Mezuras and Mulubon, because having relations while she's pregnant helps the child become better and healthier and more vibrant. And so that's what I did. So therefore, people are going to say, well, if he's supposed to be better and more vibrant, where is it? He clearly is not. So that's number 2. Ma bar nidri, what about my oaths? Kol nashim shel beis avich hayu nodros yehei li ben hagun lemalchus. Everybody who was in all the wives that David had said, I really hope that I have a son who's appropriate to become the king one day. Vanina darti vamarti, but that's not what I prayed for. She says, I davened yehei li ben zoriz. I wanted to have a son who would hurry to do the right thing. Umamula b'Torah, was steeped in Torah. V'hagon l'nevias, and appropriate to get nevuah. So you're embarrassing me, because that's what I davened for, and you're disappointing. So that's how she rebuked it, right? Only a mom could. Okay? So the pasuk says, Al limlachim limoel, al limlachim shesoyayin, she says that this is not the way that you should be acting like the kings, right? This is not, you should not drink like the kings, like everybody else. So what does this mean? Amralo, she said to him, why are you acting like all the other kings? Who drink wine and they get drunk. They say, what do we have to do with Hashem, right? We don't have to worry about anything, right? We're the kings. Uleroznim a shechar. Now those who have secrets, they shouldn't be drinking, meaning Misha kol raze olam geluyim lo yishta yayin v'yishtaker, right? So those who have all the secrets of the world, the Sanhedrin, right? All these people who have the secrets of the world, the Sanhedrin, are coming to you. They come to his door. Mashkim and lift pischo. They're supposed to come to your door. Oh, no, I went to the wrong place there. So, meaning, everybody, somebody who knows all of the secrets of the world should get drunk. And if you do that, so then you're going to give away all your secrets, right? You'll be loose lips, sink ships, as they say. Okay?
There's like so many. There's so many times where they say like wine is so bad, and why did the Rabbanan not get together and like make
like ban it?
Yeah, like ban it.
Because they also said that a little bit of wine makes you wise and smart. It has its purpose. It also you have to reckon, right? Whenever we make kiddush or things, we use wine. Whenever we're using a mitzvah, we use wine. Why? Because the potential for kedusha is directly proportionate to the potential for tumah. Right? Yeah. So the worse something can be, the greater it can be. Right? That's always the parallel. That's why the avera of when they were getting rid of the avodah zarah, right? It took away nevuah.
Right.
We didn't have any more nevuah after Avodah Zarah, after we got rid of our. And then when they tried to get rid of when they got rid of the Yetzer Hara for illegal relations, they couldn't find anybody doing anything. Nobody was working anymore. Nobody was making anything, right? Because there's a power to these averos. Anything that has a negative side has a corresponding positive to it. So that's why it wasn't right. That's just the way that Hashem created the world, right? You could choose things to use for good or for bad, right?
Yep.
So Ikadamri, there are those who explain it like this: Mishakol Rosne Ola Mashkimin Lepischo. This is what I was saying before. This somebody who all of the secrets of the world, all the people who have all the secrets of the world come to his door. So meaning the Sanhedrin come and knock on your door in order to be able to ask you questions. Yishta Yayin Vishtakar, you're going to drink and you're going to get drunk. Does that make sense? Amar Rav Yitzchak, Minayin Shechazer Shlomo v'Hodalim. Well, how do you know that Shlomo took what his mother said seriously and he did tshuva? Dichsev, the pasuk says, Kibar Anochi Meish v'lo binas Adam. Right? He says that. He says that Kibar Anochi Meish. I'm not sure what bar means. What is it? What is that? How do you translate that pasuk? Kibar Anochi Meish v'lo binas Adam li.
For I am more foolish than a man.
There we go. I'm more foolish than a man, and I don't have the understanding of Adam. That's what it is. So he explains like this. What does it mean? I'm more foolish than a man. Kibar Anochi Meish is mean Noach. Ish is Noach because why? The pasuk says Dichsiv Vayachal Noach Ish Hadama. He was an Ish, and then V'lo binas Adam Zehu Adam Harishon. So he says I should have learned. I wasn't as wise as Noach and Adam, and I didn't learn from them, and I should have learned from them. And so once he realized and recognized I didn't do the right thing, he must have received whatever his mother's rebuke was. Okay, now back into the situation of the Ben Sorah or Moreh. We said that if he eats his meat and drinks his wine, but he's doing it as part of a mitzvah, let's say he goes to somebody's wedding or something, so then it doesn't count. Amar Rabbi Avo, Eino chayav ad sheyochel bechabura shekula sreikin. In order to be violating, he's got to eat this meat in the company of people who are all sreikin are deciferous. Was it the word? Is deciferous trees? Is that the word? Those are the trees that don't have any fruit, right? Deciduous. I can't remember the word. Anyway, these are trees that are empty. They don't bear fruit. The word srak is a tree that doesn't bear any fruit.
Good for nothing.
Right? It's good for nothing, right? But we learned in a Mishnah, achach bechaburas mitzvah, that if he eats in a company of people who are doing a mitzvah, eino nasa ben sorah morah, then it's not a ben sorah morah, because that's not a negative thing that he's doing, eating this meat together with a group of people doing a mitzvah. Taima de mitzvah, so that means that if he's doing a mitzvah, so then he's safe. But halav mitzvah, afagav de lav kula sreikin. But then what happens if it's not a mitzvah? It doesn't mean that everybody, it means if it's not a mitzvah, he should be liable. It doesn't mean that they have to all be, empty people, because they don't, that's not, it doesn't mean they all have to be empty people. Where'd you get that from? So Hakamash Malon, this is what it means. Dalfagav de Kula Sreikin, it means that even if he's in company of a bunch of good for nothings, Kevid de Mitzvah Ka'asik, as long as they're involved in a mitzvah, Lo Mimshach, then that's fine. He's not going to continue and do the wrong things. It's when he's not doing a mitzvah and he's sitting around with people who are not good for him, then he's going to continue to do the bad things. Next, so examples of mitzvahs. Achal be'ibur chodesh. They had a feast when they were celebrating that they had an extra day in the month. They wanted to publicize it, so they made a little bit of a meal. The Beis Din would have a little bit of a meal in order so that everybody would find out. And they go, oh, they're having the meal. That means that this month has 30 days. Lamemer de basar v'yayin masku. 1 second. Are you saying that they served meat and wine at that meal? In other words, how they said Ben Sorah Morah who eats meat and wine at that meal is in chayev, but they didn't serve meat and wine at that meal. V'atayim, we're in a brisa. Ein olin law ella bepas dogan v'kitnis bilvad. They just had some bread, some grain bread, and they had a little bit of legumes. It wasn't the major feast. So Kamash Malon, that's what it means. Afagav de ein olin la ela b'pas kitnis, right? Even though normally nobody's supposed to have that. Ve'ihu osik basar v'yayin v'achal, but he brought his own meat and wine to the meal. You'd say, well, that's not part of the meal, so therefore he should be liable. Kevan de b'mitzvah ka'asik lo mimshech. We say no, since he's involved in a mitzvah, he's not going to continue, even though that meat and wine really wasn't part of the mitzvah. It is part of the mitzvah because that's where he ate it. Let's talk about that meal for a second. They don't have in this meal of Ibar Chodesh, they shouldn't have less than 10 people, because once you have 10 people, everybody's talking about it. They only would bring up some bread and a little bit of legumes. Ve'ein olin la el or iburo, and you don't go up there until it's nightfall, the night of the 31st, so that people would know the day before was the 30th, and this is the first day of Rosh Chodesh. Ve'ein olin la bayom el balayla. You don't go up during the day; you go up at night. V'atanya, but we learned another brisa. In olin lo balayla lo bayom. You're not supposed to go up at night; you're supposed to go up during the day. Kedam Rav Chia bar Abba. So Rav Chia bar Abba explained. Livnei to his sons, achrifu va'olu, achrifu upoku. He says, what you got to do is you got to go up before it gets dark, and you got to come down before the morning. So that people will see that you're coming and going. Right? We want to be able to see. People should notice that you're going up and down. So therefore, it was really, the meal was happening at night, but this seems to be what they would do, is go up a little bit earlier so that people would see you going up and down. So if he eats Meiser Sheni in Yerushalayim, so that's a mitzvah, so he can't be a Ben Soramora. Since that's the right way for it to be eaten, so he's not going to continue to be gluttonous through this. Now, if he eats non-kosher meat, now he's doing averos. So that also makes him, he's not a ben soramor if he does averos through it, because eating nevelos and trefos shkatzim v'ramasim, if he eats creepy crawly things. Amarava, achal basar oaf, eno nasa ben soramor. If he eats chicken, doesn't count. It's not a ben soramor. V'ha'anan tanan, what we learned in Mishnah, achal nevelos and trefos shkatzim v'ramasim, eno nasa ben soramor. Ha, tohorin nasa ben soramor. It says that if he eats any kind of nevela or treifa, right, these are non-kosher meats or creepy crawly things, so then you're not a ben soramora, which means that if you eat a kosher thing, then you can be a ben soramora, which should include poultry. Kitnanami masnisin lehashlim. So he says that that what he's doing here, that our Mishnah is explaining. That you're only filling up the. Let's say he ate most of the amount of meat that he needed to eat with meat, but then he has a little bit left. So then kosher would be able to fill it up. The chicken could suffice. But if all he ate was the chicken, then that wouldn't do it. Okay, now. Achol davar shehu mitzvah v'davar avera. Now let's say he eats something. Now the Mishnah ends off with, if he eats something which was a mitzvah to eat or something which was an avera to eat. Davar mitzvah, what's an example of something that was for mitzvah? Because the Mishnah is coming to add us a different case that we didn't have before. Tanchume avelim, that would be somebody who comes to a meal for the mourners. Right, in order to dunichim avelim, it's a mitzvah. That is not going, he wouldn't be chayav then. Davar avera, what about for a wicked action, is tainis tzibor, if he eats during a fast day. But time of my, what's the reason? Amar Kro, the pasuk says, Einenu shomea bekolenu. He's not listening to our voice, the parents say. He's not listening to our voice. Bekolenu velo bekol shemakom. He's saying that he's not listening to our voice, but he is listening to Hashem. He's still doing mitzvah now. Now, it sounds wrong. It sounds like he's worse if he's doing averos. And so Rashi says, that's just the Torah tells us that's the rule. And whether you can figure out what the rationale behind that or not is, that's what makes him ben soramor, not if he does averos. Then he says if he eats anything else other than meat, or he drinks anything else, and it's not wine. So So you know what it comes to include, what other thing he could be eating that maybe he'll go after that's not meat? Like it could be the pressed figs that from a place called Elis, that apparently they were intoxicating and apparently very good. But nevertheless, that's not going to make you a ben soramora. And as far as what to drink, honey and milk. Again, also a little intoxicating, but that's not going to make you a ben soramora. Titania's going to brisa. Achol devela kilis v'shas dvash v'cholov. If a person, a kohen, eats the pressed figs from Elis and he drinks honey and milk, v'nichnas lemikdash, and he goes into the Beis HaMikdash to do the service, chayev, he's in violation of the prohibition against doing the service while he's intoxicated. So therefore, those are intoxicating things, but nevertheless, not going to be a problem for the ben soramora. Amud Aleph. Eino nasa ben soramora ad sheyochel basar yishta yayin. He's not a ben soramora until he eats meat and drinks wine. Tanar Rabbanan Rabbi Soren. Achal kol ma'achav v'lo achal basar. If he eats any food but he does not eat meat. Shasa kol mashke v'lo shasa yayin. If he drinks anything and he does not drink wine, ino nasa ben sorah mora. He's not a ben sorah mora. Ad sheyochel basar v'yishta yayin. He's got to eat meat and he's got to drink wine. Shneimar pasuk says zolel v'soveh. He has to be gluttonous and a drunkard. V'yafal pisha ein raya l'davar. Even though there's no real indication, the word zolel v'soveh definitely means meat and wine. Zecher l'davar. I can find in a pasuk that sort of indicates that. Shneimar pasuk says. Al tehi besov yayin. You should not be with those that are intoxicated with wine. Bezola le basar, and those that are gluttonous with meat. Lama. The Omer, and it says kisove vezolel yoresh ukroim talbish. Those who are intoxicated and gluttonous will inherit torn. They will inherit clothing that is torn that they will wear. Talbish numa. Amar Reb Zera, which means Reb Zera says, "Call Yashim." So why? Because he's going to be poor and he won't be able to. This person is going to be gluttonous and he's going to be chasing after his desires. He's going to wind up not being able to afford all of his luxurious tastes, and he will be winding up with very little physical items that are in his possessions. Amar Reb Zera says, "Call Yashim beis medrash." Anybody falls asleep in the beis medrash, Torah so nase lo crime. His Torah is like it's going to be all torn up in rags. Why? Shnamar crime talbish noma, that those who sleep, right, in rags, meaning those who sleep in the beis medrash, will be in rags. What does that mean? Because, I suppose, if one is trying to listen to a shiur, if you ever had the experience to listen to the Shmuley Fuchs 3 minutes of our Torah, and you doze off a little at a time during the 3 minutes of our Torah, you know that you wake up and go, what in the world was he talking about? I heard the beginning, a little bit here, a little bit there, and you don't have anything. You have little pieces of rags. You don't have the whole thing, right? So it could have been a beautiful garment, but if it was already fallen asleep during it, so it's all rags.
So it's not advisable then to put your head down in a beis medrash and
nap, right? I suppose, yeah. If you wind up going, you're in, you're out. Your brain tunes in, tunes out. Right. It's going to be hard for you to remember. Sure. So there you go. Says the Mishnah. Ganav mishal aviv v'achal b'reshus aviv. Let's say he steals from his father and he eats it in his father's house. So Mishal Achirim, he steals from somebody other than his father, V'achal b'reshus Achirim, he eats in somebody else's house. Mishal Achirim, he steals from somebody else, V'achal b'reshus Aviv, and he eats it in his father's house. Eino nasa ben sorah mora. In all those cases, he's not a ben sorah mora. Ad sheyignov Mishal Aviv, until he steals from his father, V'yochel b'reshus Achirim, and he eats it someplace else. Why? We'll see the Gemara. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi says, Ad sheyignov Mishal Aviv, Mishal imo. It has to be he has to steal from his father and his mother, not just from his father. Says the Gemara. God of Mishal Aviv, V'achal b'reshus Aviv. If he steals from his father and he eats in his father's household, Afagav d'shchiach le, even though what he's stealing is something that's readily available to him, and therefore he can continue this behavior if he wants. But he's going to be afraid that he's going to get caught because he's sitting in his father's house. He's going to get caught, so he won't keep doing it.
Is he stealing money or food?
We're going to see that in a second.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? That's a good question. Right. Mishal Acherim, he steals from somebody else, V'achal b'reshus Acherim, and then he eats it in somebody else's possession. Avagav de lo boyis, he's not going to be afraid because he's eating it not on his father's property. Lo shchiach le, he's not going to always be available to steal from somebody else. So therefore, he's not going to be able to keep up his desires. The kol shekei mishal achirim ve'achal b'reshus aviv. Obviously, the same applies if he's stealing from somebody else where it's not available, and then he eats in his father's household where he's going to be scared. Jelo shchiach le'ubois. It's going to be not available, and he's going to be afraid. Ad sheyigno mishal aviv. He's got to steal from his father where the money is available. Ve'yochel b'reshus achirim, eat in somebody else's possession. Deshchiach le, because then that which he's stealing is readily available. Velo bois, and he's not going to be afraid because he's going to be eating it someplace else. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says, Ad sheyignov mishal aviv mishalim. He's got to steal from his father and his mother. Imo minole. Where does his mother have any money from? She doesn't have possessions of her own. After all, everything that a wife has belongs to the husband. So therefore, how can she own any property? So Masha Kansa Isha Kanabala. So Rabbi Yossi explains, Rabbi Chanina, Misuda Hamuchenes La'aviv Ulima. Let's say there's a meal being presented, right? The food's placed on the mother's plate. So the father has an obligation to give to feed his wife, so therefore that is her food. So if he steals that, then that's stealing from the mother.
Are we talking about a dependent here, or are we talking about...
Yes, it's their child, right?
So,
and he is 13.
Yeah, so then why would it be considered stealing? Or you're saying only like in that specific action we're taking the food off the plate?
That's exactly right.
Only in that one case?
That's what we're saying now.
Right.
We had to come up with a circumstance where the mother has food, right? So the Amar Rabbi Chanan bar Moloda, Amar Rav Huna, Rabbi Chanan bar Moloda says in the name of Rav Huna, Eno chayv ad sheikne basar bezol v'yochel v'yayin bezol. But it's not true. It's not where he actually has the food. He has to be able to steal money. This was your question. He has to steal money, and he has to go and buy meat and buy wine for a cheap price. So v'ish, and he's going to drink it. Ella amos, or rather, what happens is midmei seuda mucheres lavi v'luma. What happens is the father and the mother reserve money in order to be able to buy a meal, and he steals that. So now it's already in the possession of the mother because it was already set aside for the meal. Ebois or else, I have another way that the mother could have property. De'ikni la acher, another person comes along and says, I'm going to give the mother, gives this woman a present. V'amar la, and he says to her, I'm giving it to you on condition that your husband doesn't have it. It's not your husband's, it's yours specifically. If somebody gives a gift to a woman that way, then it does belong to her. There are also other ways, I suppose. We talked about a nichse malug and those kinds of things. Those are rights that are in a contract that something could belong to the woman, but the husband has rights to them. Potentially that could be an answer in other Gemaras we talk about how a woman can have possessions in that circumstance. But these are ways that a woman can have possession. And according to Rabbi Yossi, it has to be something that's stolen from both the father and the mother. Says next Mishnah, Haya aviv rotze v'imo eno rotze. Let's say the father wants to bring him to Beis Din and the mother does not. Aviv eno rotze v'imo rotze, or vice versa. The father does not want to and the mother does. Eno nasa ben sora mora, then that is not a ben sora mora. Ad shihu shneim rotzen, until they both want to go together. Rabbi Yehuda says, Im lo haisa imo reuya le'aviv, if the mother is not appropriate for the father, Eno nasa ben sora mora, he's not a ben sora mora. What does that mean? Says the Gemara. My eno reuya. What does that mean that this woman is not appropriate for the father? If we're talking about they shouldn't have been allowed to get married because there's some avera in their relationship. Nevertheless, yeah, their marriage was an avera, but still his father and still his mother. So that's what's important, father and mother. So Ella b'shavir la'avikumen, meaning the mother has to be equal to the father, meaning same height, same we're going to see same speech, same details, everything. Tanya Nami Yachiv Bryce that says that as well. Rabbi Yehuda says, Im lo haisa imo shavil aviv bikol ubemare ubekoma. If the mother is not equal to the father, as far as the way that her voice sounds, in the way that she looks, and in how tall she is, Eno nasa ben sora mora is not ben sora mora. It's weird.
Yes, yeah, I don't care.
My time, why is that? To Amar Krop, because the pasuk says, Einenu shomea bekolenu, he's not hearing our voice. Singular, our voice. Midekol ba'inon shavin. So now that we know that the voice has to be the same, Mara vekomanami ba'in shavin. So also the way that they looked and their height also has to look the same. So Kaman Ozla Hodetanya. So who's it going like? It's that one who says like this in the Brisa, Ben Sora Mora lo hayav lo asid lios. The Ben Sora Mora never happened. Right? This is such a wacky sort of a case. This is impossible for it to occur.
Under these conditions,
right?
It would have been possible.
So we just made it impossible. V'lama nichtov. So why is it written in the Torah then if it's not possible? So Darish v'kabel schar, in order for us to learn about it and receive a reward. Kiman, who's like Rabbi Yehuda. It's like Rabbi Yehuda also. Imais ema. Those who say Rabbi Shimon, it's like Rabbi Shimon. Titania, as Rabbi Shimon says, like this. Rabbi Shimon v'chi b'nei she'achol zet trait marbasa v'shasach chatzi lug yain hitalki aviv imo motzino so lisaklo. I don't understand. Just because this kid ate too much meat and wine, his parents are going to take him out in order to get lashes? That's impossible. What parents would do that? It's never happened. So why is it there? Drosh v'kabel schar, so that people will go and learn about it and receive reward. Rabbi Yonasan says, Anira isiv, I have seen such a case. V'sheyashafti al kivro, and I sat on his grave. Happened. Really happened. So he says, Keman ozla hodetanya. Now, similarly, who does this brisa go like? Irni dachas lo haisa v'lo asida lios. And irni dachas never happened, and it never will happen. V'lama nichteva, why does it say that? Drosh v'kabel schar, learn about it and receive a reward. Kiman, who's it like? It's Rabbi Eliezer. It's like Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Tanya, you learn a brisa. Rabbi Eliezer says, Kol ir sheyesh ba afilu mezuzah achas ina nasas irni dachas. Any city that even has one mezuzah in the entire city can't be an irni dachas. My time, why is that? Amar Kol, the pasuk says, you've got to gather all the possessions of the city, put it in the square, and burn it. The kevan deika mezuzah lo afshar, but once there's a mezuzah, you can't burn it. The pasuk says, lo sasun kin la Hashem elokechem, you can't destroy things that are for Hashem. So you can't destroy mezuzah, so therefore you can't destroy the city. Then their inidachas never has happened. Amar Rabbi Yonasan. Rabbi Yonasan says, Ani re'isiha, I have seen Ani Nidachas, v'yashafti al tila, and I sat on its ruins. So, Kaman Azla, yeah, that's correct. He's seen a lot of things. Kaman Azla Hadatanya. Who is the following Bryce to go like? Beis HaMenoga, a house that has tsaras on it. Lo haya v'lo asid lios. Never has happened, and the house that's destroyed has never happened and never will happen. V'lama nichtov, why is it written in the Torah? Drosh v'kabel schar, you should learn about it and receive a reward. Kiman, who's it like? Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Shimon, it's like Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Shimon says, Ditznan, listen to how detailed, how the rule has to be. We learned in a Mishnah. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Shimon says, Liolam ein habayis tamei ad shegir kishtei grisin. You have to have, a house cannot be tamei until the house has a wall, right? This is I'm trying to make it look like, imagine this is the corner of our house. This is a wall, and then there's a wall over this way. I don't know if you can tell what I'm doing here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
I
It's
see
a
it.
wall, right? And so the bricks, there's a brick here, and there's a brick here on the other side, and the tsaras is right here. It has to be right here, in between. Al shtei avonim, it has to be on two stones, b'shtei ksalim, on two walls, b'keren zavis, in a corner. Archo, the length of that blemish has to be kshnei grisin, the length of two beans, which is the minimum size, one bean, but v'rachbok grisin has to be as wide as a bean. My taima, Rabbi Elazar, why is that? Why does Rabbi Elazar say that? Because the Rabbi Elazar Shimon, the pasuk says, kir uksiv kiros. It says kir and then it says kiros, meaning it has to be on walls. Ezu kir shehu kiros, kikiros. How does it have to be one wall, which is like two? Haviyam zek keren zovis. It has to be the corner where the two walls meet. Okay? So therefore, you need to have this blemish right there in the corner, right in that one location where the two blemishes happen to meet, right there in the corner, in the entire house, right there. Impossible. Very little happens. So therefore, it never happened. Tanya, we ordered a Bryce.
Rabbi Yonasan didn't see that.
Well, one second. Rabbi Elazar Ritzadok. Rabbi Elazar Ritzadok says, Malkum Haya Betchum Azah. There was a place within the boundaries of the place called Azah. V'hayu kornoso churvasa segirta, and they used to call it the destroyed. This place was called churvasa segirta, which means the destruction of. The destruction of the afflicted house, right? From the word nogas, right? Destruction of the afflicted house. And Amar Rabbi Shimon, Ish Kfar Akko, and Rabbi Shimon was a man from the city of Akko. Pam Achas Halachti Le Galil. One time I went to this place in the Galil, Varaisi Makom Shemetzaininoso, and I saw a place where they had a sign put up there, V'amru, and it said Avanim Minugos Pinu Lasham. This is where they threw the bricks for the house that got destroyed, because they're tamei, so they had to make sure that people were aware not to touch them. So therefore, they threw them out someplace. Says the next Mishnah. So again, they did see it, right? But not Rabbi Yonasan. It says the Mishnah. Haya echad mehem gidem ochigir. If one of the parents has no hand, or is cannot. One second. Suma chiresh. Chiger is cannot hear. O Elaim is mute. O Suma is blind. O Chiresh and cannot hear. Eino nasa ben sormor. Then there's no. Oh, Gidem is sorry. Chiger has a foot missing. That's what it is. So no hand, no foot, blind, deaf, or mute. All of those things invalidate a parent from having a child with because of ben sormor. Why? Because the pasuk says v'tafsu bo aviv. They have to grab him. Ve'imo, his father and mother, velo gidmin, so they have to have their hands. Ve'otzio so, they have to take him out, velo chagrin, that means they have to have their feet. Ve'amru, and they say, velo ilmin, it can't be mute. Banenu zeh, this is our son, velo sumin, they can't be blind, because they have to say, this is our son. Einenu shomea bekolenu, has not heard our voice, velo chereshin, which means they can't be deaf. So Master Bo bifnei shlosha, so what they do is, they warn him in front of three. Here we're going to see three witnesses, three judges. Umalkin also, and then they give him lashes. Chazar, the kilkel. So then, if he goes back and does it again after Beis Din has given him lashes the first time, so then Nidon Besser Rishosha, then they bring him back in front of 23 judges. Ve'non iskal, and he's not stoned. Achiu sham shlosha harishonim, and you need the three original judges that were with him at the first case have to be part of that Beis Din. Shnamar, as it says, Banenu zeh, this is our son. Zehu shalaka b'fnechem. This is the one that you whipped the first time. So therefore, from the pasuk Banenu zeh, we know it has to be the same judges. Says the Gemara, Shmas mina ba'inen kra kidechsiv. What we see from here is that when the Torah gives you a story here, the story has to play out exactly as the pasuk says in order for it to be for it to take place. You might think, well, the kid ate the meat, drank the wine, and then the father's on crutches and he takes the kid to Beis Din. So that follows essentially what the pasuk is saying. No, this tells us that if the pasuk lists the story, the case has to be taken literally, exactly as the story says. So shani hacha, nope, not true. That is not the way that it normally works. Here it is different. Ayin Aleph Amud Beis dekuli kro yiseri, because this is an extra pasuk. It's not necessary to tell us that the father take him, they grab him, they bring it. Of course, they bring it to Beis Din and they try him. It doesn't have to be this whole story about they take him and they grab him and they say to him and they tell him. So the whole pasuk is extra. So therefore, every word in the pasuk is an extra drush. That's why we learn it. Umasrim b'fnei shlosha. We are going to literally warn him in front of three. Lama li. Why do I need three? Betray sagi. All I need is two witnesses. I don't need three. Amar Rabbi, Rabbi says, Hachi kamar. This means Masrim bo b'fnei shnayim. We warn him in front of two witnesses. Umalkin oso b'fnei shlosha. But we're going to give him the lashes in front of a Beis Din of three judges. Malkus beben sorer mora heichaksiva. Where do you see in the Torah that it says that a ben sorer mora is supposed to get Malkus? Kid Rabbi Yavo. So Rabbi Yavo says, Rabbi Yavo says, Lamanu. It says vayisru mi vayisru. It says the pasuk talks about. Which is this case? Motzi Shemra. This is the person who says lashon hara about his wife and says she's not a basula. So they are going to vayisru, which means that they're going to warn him. But it says, but we're going to learn exer shava from here. From that pasuk over to vayisru of ben sora mora, and then it says mi ben uben. Mi ben. So it says also by the ben sora mora, it says the word ben, and then it says bin hakos es harasha, v'hayi bin hakos harasha, when it comes to lashes, giving lashes to witnesses who lie, ebim zomimim, so giving lashes to them, it says the word ben also, v'hayi im bin hakos harasha. So therefore, the word ben to ben goes back to the ben sora mora, and then we go vayisru back to tell me that you get lashes by motzi shemra. But the point that in the middle is that the case in the middle is the ben sora mora, he gets lashes. Chazer v'kilkul nidon bechav gimel. Then if he does it again, then we have to come back to the court with 23 judges. Haimi boile. But you can't use that pasuk. Banenu zeh, in order to teach us, has to be the three original judges, because you told us zev lo sumin. It means zeh, and that means that the parents can't be blind. So im kein lichtov banenuhu, right? If that was they could be blind, all they had to say was this is our son. Doesn't have to, or you'd say our son. My banenu zeh. Why'd they say this one? Shema mino tarti. It's to teach us both of those drushos. They say our son, and they say this one that you whipped. Teaches us both they can't be blind and it has to be in front of the three original judges. Next Mishnah. Barach achlo nigmardino. The guy runs away. Ben Sora Mora runs away before they finish judging the case. V'yachar kach hikif zokin atachton. And he escapes. And remember, there's only 3 months that he could possibly be a Ben Sora Mora. So he's on the loose for 3 months. They catch him. But it's already past the 3 months. Then Potter, he can't be a Ben Sora Mora now because it's too late. Nigmar Dino Barach. But if they pronounce him to be a Ben Sora Mora and then he escapes, they catch him 5 years later, chayev. Then he's chayev. Why? Because we're going to see once the court pronounces judgment on him, now he's a dead man. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chanina, Rav Chanina says, Ben Noach shebirech es Hashem. Let's say you have a non-Jew who curses Hashem's name. We said he's going to be chayav misa in that circumstance. V'yachar kach nisgayer, but then he converts. Now what? So Potter, he's exempt now from the misa. Why? Ho v'nishtana dino, because his judgment has changed. So nishtana misa so, right? So now his judgment has changed. How so? Because a non-Jew gets judged with one judge, with no witness, with one witness. He doesn't need 2 witnesses. He doesn't need a warning. And not only that, but his misa has changed. We said that by a non-Jew who curses Hashem, so he gets sayif, he gets killed with a sayif with a sword, and a Jew gets killed with skila. So there's 2 differences.
Isn't that encouraging someone to convert? Don't we not do that? Right?
Yeah. It's like he's trying to get away. Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to get a better judgment. I would do that.
Save his life. Name a misayele. Let's say this supports that viewpoint. Barach adshlo nigmar dino. Let's say in our Mishnah, the boy runs away before his case is closed. But then he becomes old enough that he's no longer in the case in the category of a ben sora mora. So then he's potter, he's exempt. My time, what's the reason for that? Lav mishum damrin and hol vishtani ishtani. Don't we say that since he has changed into a different person, so now he's changed, it's like maybe the ger, he's a different person. Lo, that's different. Shani hacha, di avid hashta lav bar katalahu. The reason why it would be different is because if this kid would do this avera now, eating meat and drinking wine, now that he's 14 years old, he wouldn't be chayev. So that's why his case changes. The non-Jew, though, wouldn't necessarily be the same thing because cursing Hashem, we'd be chayav misa whether you were Jewish or non-Jewish. So it's only because these other issues pop up, according to...
It was an age thing, not a...
That's correct. Toshma, come and listen. Imisha nigmar. So now we're going to try to say Imisha nigmar dino barach. However, once there's a gemar din and he's established he's going to get misa and he runs away, then he becomes old enough to not be chayiv anymore. So chayiv, then he's going to be liable. Nigmar dino. So therefore, you see that the non-Jew should be liable, right? He's liable. He's going to be chayiv misa, so it shouldn't matter. Well, nigmar dino kamart. What you can't bring a case from the circumstance where the case was resolved. Nigmar dino gavra katilu. Once the case is resolved, he's a dead man. Then you're just carrying out a sentence. That's not the same thing at all. Toshma, come listen. Ben Noach shehikeas chavero. Let's talk more about this case of the Ben Noach. A Ben Noach who hits his friend. Ubal eishes chavero, and he has relations with his friend's wife. Okay, so these are two averos where he's chayav misa for. V'nis gayer, and now he converts potter. Then he's exempt. Also can be Yisrael, v'nis gayer. If he does this to a Jewish person and now he converts, he's chayav. He's liable. Why? V'amai. Why is that? Ne'mahol v'ishtani ishtani dino. So he says, well, once he's become a Jew, so now the ruling that the court case would have been different. So why shouldn't it be off? So he says the answer is dino umisa so be'inon. In order for him to be off, you not only have to change the court proceedings, but also the misa. It has to be both, right? In this circumstance, the misa is going to be the same. Hi, dino ishtanu misa sol ishtani. His judgment process changed, but his misa has not changed. So 1 second. Bishlomo rotzeach. I understand the case where he murders somebody, hit his friend. He murdered somebody, mekar sayf hashta sayf. When he wasn't Jewish, the punishment was sayf. The punishment for murder for a Jewish person is also sayf. Therefore, nothing changed. I understand that. Ella ashes ish. What about if he had relations with a married person? So, mekar sayf, when he was non-Jewish, it was sayf. V'hashta, but now the punishment for adultery is chenek. So it's a different misa. So the answer is, no, we're talking about benara ha'ma'orasa. De'idi ve'idi beskila. We're talking about a circumstance of nara ma'orasa. Nara ma'orasa, we had learned that in a circumstance, because we say, v'ha asa kain b'Yisrael, dumya de'eshas chavero ktani. Says what happens is, I'm sorry, ve'idi ve'idi beskila. We'll stop, pause there for a second and explain. What happens is that we had learned that if a non-Jew commits an avera with somebody who there correspondingly that avera doesn't exist by non-Jews, so that he gets the same punishment, he gets the same misa as a Jew would get. So, nara orasa, there is no such thing as marriage in contract marriage by non-Jews. They get married by living together. So therefore, the concept of a nara ma'orasa doesn't exist by non-Jews. So let's say this non-Jew has relations with a nara ma'orasa, somebody who was engaged to a Jew. So now what misa can he get? He can't get misa of sayef because that crime doesn't apply in the non-Jewish world. He gets skila just like a Jewish person would get. So therefore, when this is talking about a circumstance of he was a non-Jew who then becomes Jewish, we're talking about a non-Jew who commits adultery with a nara ma'orasa, so that he would get skila in that circumstance, then he becomes a Jew, and he still gets skila. That's why he's still going to get the same misa. 1 second though. Us can be Yisrael, so dumya de'eshas chavero ktani. He says, doesn't say he does the same thing to a Jewish person. He says that it is similar that what he did to the Jew, what the adultery he committed to the Jew would be something that he could have done to a non-Jew as well, which means that isn't the case. It's not a circumstance of Nar Marsa. Ella, so rather, you know why it's not considered to be a different misa? Kala bechamura meshich sheicha. So he says what happens is that a lesser death sentence is included in a greater death sentence. Meaning, sayif is a higher death sentence than strangulation. We said sword is higher in the priority order. Sayif is higher than chenek. So when he was a non-Jew, he was chayiv sayif. Now that he's a Jew, he's chayiv chenek. Well, sayif means you can get sayif or chenek, because anything below it. So therefore, now that he's downgraded to chenek, it was already included in the misa that he got before, therefore he's not really out of the misa, and therefore he gets killed regardless. Okay, that's nice. Hani chalor rabbanan, that's great according to the rabbanan, damri sayif chamor, who say that sayif is the greater death sentence than strangulation. El Rabbi Shimon, what about Rabbi Shimon? Damar chenek chamor, he's the one who says that strangulation is the greater penalty over sayif, if you remember. Ma'ikal Meimer, how are you going to explain it? So Rabbi Shimon savar lo ketana de Bei Menashe. Rabbi Shimon holds like the Tana of Bei Menashe. He says, "De Amar kol misa ha'mura livnei Noach eina ela chenek." He's the one who holds that just like everybody else says that the punishment that non-Jews get is always sayif. He says no. The punishment that all non-Jews get is chenek. So therefore, he was getting chenek before by an Ashes Ish. When he was a non-Jew, now that he has relations with a Jew, if he has relations with a Jewish person, he also, as a Jew, he'd also get chenek. So bishlam Ashes Ish, so that works by the adultery. Meikara chenek, when he was non-Jewish, he'd get chenek. V'hashta, now that he's Jewish, still chenek. Okay, great. El rotseach, but what about the murder? Meikara chenek, first he would have gotten, when he was a non-Jew, he would have gotten chenek. V'hashta sayif, but now that he's Jewish, it would be elevated to sayif. So the answer is, that's not elevated to sayif. Remember, this is Rabbi Shimon's opinion. Rabbi Shimon is of the opinion that sayif is lower. Kale bechamura meshich sheicha. The lenient one is included in the stringent one. If the non-Jew would have gotten chenek, then for sure skila is included in that. Lema misayeh. Let's say the following supports that view. Sarcha ve'achar kach bagra tidon bechenek. So he says, the case is, so Nara Ma'orasa, this is talking about a case of Nara Ma'orasa, that she has relations, ve'achar kach, and afterwards bagra, she grows up, okay, before she gets brought to Beis Din. Tidon bechenek. So she's going to get chenek, the regular misa that would happen by adultery. Well, why not beskila my time alone? Why can't she get skila? Because after all, she was a nara morasa when she committed the avera, and the halacha by a nara morasa was that she gets skila. Mishum dehol vishtani ishtani. The answer is, like we said, just like the Ben Sora Mora, once she changes the age thing, she changes in age and becomes older, so she's no longer eligible for that punishment from before. The kol shekain hacha. So here too, dishtani legamri. So she's completely changed, right? Ha'amar le Rabbi Yochanan latana tani tidon beskila. So he says, one second. So therefore he's saying, okay, so it should be the same rule should apply, that the change that we had by a Bogeres growing up should also apply to the non-Jew converting to being Jewish. So that's a complete change. So therefore, why should he not be off the hook? The Gemara answers, Ha'amar le Rabbi Yochanan latana, so that Rabbi Yochanan said to the Amora who taught this, that you're supposed to teach it, Tani tidon beskila. That the Nara HaMorasa actually does indeed get skila. He disagrees that the change happens. Why? Because she's judged by the Misa that she got originally. So just as the non-Jew, right, he was chayev a Misa, and then he converts to a Jew, you're right, he's changed, but he's still chayev for the Misa that he had from before, as long as the Misa didn't change over the time or the rules didn't change of his court case, but he still gets the skila that he had before. When it comes to the Naram Orasa, same thing. So just as she was chayev skila before, so she continues to be chayev skila now. So the fact that they change in who they are does not change their Misa. Okay, that's a place where we'll stop, I guess.
Oh yeah.